No Country for Old Men is an American novel published in 2005 and written by Cormac McCarthy. 2 years after the book's release, the Coen brothers adapted and directed the motion picture of the same name. The Coen brothers are best known for writing and directing The Big Lebowski and Fargo. The film stars actor Tommy Lee Jones as Ed Tom Bell, one of the most hick-sounding names in cinematic history. Tommy Lee is basically playing the older version of the characters from Fugitive and U.S. Marshals. Thanos plays the film's protagonist Llewellyn Moss, another hick-ass sounding name, and award-winning Spanish actor Javier Bardem plays Anton Dumb Haircut Shigaru. Okay, so this guy's haircut has been bothering me ever since I saw the movie, and for the longest time I couldn't figure out why, and then it finally dawned on me. He looks like Peppermint Patty from the Peanuts cartoon. The film starts with Thanos hunting wild deer. He has one lined up perfectly in his sights, but as he pulls the trigger he somehow manages to miss the easy shot. My question is, why does he even need a gun? I know this takes place in the 1980s, so this is well before he gets the Infinity Gauntlet. But he's still Thanos, right? Shouldn't he be able to get a deer with his bare hand? Like, he slapped the fire out of Hulk and he made him retire for a while. I don't get it. But whatever, let's move on. He decides to call it a day, and as he makes his way back to his truck, he stumbles upon a drug deal gone horribly wrong. Dead bodies everywhere. Both the trucks and the bodies are riddled with bullets. Then he decides to go look for some goodies. While searching, he finds one of the drug runners begging for water. Texas Thanos tells him I ain't got no water, as he helps himself to some free guns and ammo. While perusing the scene, he finds himself a satchel filled with money. In the film, it's about $2 million, while in the novel, it's somewhere closer to $2.4 million. And then Texas Thanos heads home with the money and lives happily ever after. The end. See, that would have been the end if Texas Thanos wasn't a complete dipshit. For some reason, he decides in the middle of the night to fill a 1-gallon jug with water and bring it to the guy from earlier. This dim-witted decision is what causes his entire life to be turned upside down. Here's a few words to the wise. If you take the money, run, and never ever look back. By the time Numbnuts returns to the scene, the other members of the drug cartel have already shown up. The film depicts a very brief yet underwhelming chase, whereas in the book, it's far more interesting. They chase him across the desert before Moss gets himself shot and falls into a river, nearly drowning to death. He manages to save himself and get home, and warn his wife Carla Jean, played by Kelly MacDonald, to pack whatever she can and head to her mother's house, before the cartel can find his truck and figure out where they live. The guy with the dumb haircut is a very trigger-happy kind of guy. In the novel, he literally kills everyone he comes in contact with. One night in the middle of the street, there's a literal Mexican standoff between Moss, Anton, and 2 members of the Mexican drug cartel. By the time they run out of bullets, the 2 Mexicans are dead, and both Moss and Anton are wounded and forced to retreat and tend to their wounds. Whereas the movie's kind of boring and underwhelming. Thanos gets some poor schmuck's head blown off, for he and Dumb Haircut manage to wound each other and are forced to seek medical aid. Woody Harrelson plays Carson Wells, a former associate of Dumb Haircut. Carson is hired by the guy who's trying to buy the drugs from the cartel, and is tasked with retrieving the lost money. He finds Texas Thanos and tries to convince him that it's in his best interest to trust him, because Dumb Haircut is a trigger-happy fool. In the novel, Carlson gets to do a bit of snooping around the scene of the shootout. He tracks a stray bullet to a calendar with a bullet hole in the following day's date. He interprets this as a bad omen, and rightfully so, because the following evening, he checks into a hotel room and runs into no other than Anton. Carson is then forced into his hotel room and tries to put up a brave front in the sight of certain death. He challenges Anton to look him in the eyes as he pulls the trigger. At first this works and Anton hesitates, but after exchanging a few words, Carson loses his nerve and looks away. Anton uses this opportunity to paint the walls with Carson's brains. In the movie, he doesn't get to do much. He's introduced, he walks around a bit, does a few things here and there, and then Dumb Haircut finds him and kills him. Texas Thanos finally meets his end in a hotel room. In the novel, Moss picks up a 15-year-old girl hitchhiking on her way to California. They have a few interesting conversation. He imparts some words of wisdom and tosses her a stack of cash. They check into a motel and share a few beers, and then both go into separate rooms. That evening, Anton finds them and brutally guns them down, leaving the police and Carla Jean to believe that he was trying to run off with a minor. In the film, the hitchhiker is completely left out. In her place is a thotty MILF chilling at the motel pool and offers to have a few beers with Thanos in her room. Thanos turns her down, and they're later both found dead in the motel parking lot. Dumb Haircut eventually tracks down Carla Jean on the day of her mother's funeral, no less. Like the scene with Carson Wells and Dumb Haircut, the Coens chose to omit most of the dialogue, and they leave Carla Jean's fate ambiguous. In the novel, Anton explains to her that every life is a story. It has a beginning, middle, and end. Your story can end at any moment. It can end when you're old and gray and in your 80s, or it can end when you're young and in your 20s. None of that matters. When it's over, it's over. They flip a coin, and Anton puts a bullet in her head. My biggest problem with the film is the way the Coens treat the Ed Tom Bell character, played by Tommy Lee Jones. Compared to the book, I think the Ed Tom character is drastically reduced in both appearance and importance to the overall story. I feel like the character's only meaningful scenes are with the old man in the diner and the one where he talks to his uncle, but even that scene lacks the importance it had in the novel. I believe this scene explains the point of the movie and touches on one of the themes of the novel, and that is change. Things for both of them have changed so much and so quickly that they feel obsolete. They feel like they've outlived their importance, and in this scene they struggle to wrap their heads around how anyone like Anton Dumb Haircut could even exist. They're both lawmen, and someone like him was unheard of back in their day.
Money and the drugs. You know, if you'd have told me 20 years ago, I'd see children walking the streets of our Texas towns with green hair, bones in their noses. Believe you.
Signs and wonders. But I think once you quit hearing sir and ma'am, the rest is soon to follow.
It's the dismal tide. It is not the one.
Dumb Haircut is very watered down in the film. In the novel, Anton Chigurh is a tour de force, both unflinching and restless. He is calm, he is cold, he is calculated, he is death. If he wants you dead, then you're as good as dead. In the film, he's just a decent hitman. Visually, the movie is great, except for Anton's haircut, that's trash, but the film pales in comparison to the novel.